Most people scooping protein powder into their shaker every single morning have no idea what's actually sitting in that scoop. We pulled the data on 10 of the biggest protein powder brands in America. Consumer Reports bought them the same way you would, off shelves at Amazon, Walmart, The Vitamin Shoppe, Whole Foods, and sent them to an independent certified laboratory for testing. More than 2/3 came back with more lead in a single serving than their food safety experts say is safe to consume in an entire day. Not from some sketchy off-brand nobody's heard of, from the tubs already sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now. Here's what nobody's telling you. Some of the worst results didn't come from the cheap brands. They came from the ones with organic labels, the ones with the NSF Certified for Sport stamp, the ones marketed to serious athletes and health-conscious parents who pay extra specifically because they think they're making the safer choice. One brand tested at over 1,500% of the daily safety threshold for lead, the highest level recorded in this category in over a decade of testing. You're going to recognize the name, and here's why this is allowed to happen at all. Supplements in the United States aren't treated like food, and they aren't treated like drugs either. Before 1994, companies had to prove a supplement was safe before selling it. Then Congress passed a law that stripped away most of that oversight. Today, a protein powder is presumed safe unless someone proves otherwise, after it's already on the shelf, already in your cart, already in your body. There is no federal limit on how much lead is allowed in a scoop of protein powder. None. The FDA doesn't require it and doesn't test for it before approval, because there is no approval process to speak of. We're counting down all 10 brands, from concerning to genuinely alarming, and finishing with the 4 that tested clean and are actually worth buying. Let's get into it. Number 10. Orgain Organic Plant-Based Protein Powder. This is the tub in the health food aisle with the green leaf on the front. Organic certified, plant-based, the option people reach for specifically because they want to avoid processed junk and give their body something clean. Consumer Reports tested Orgain's organic plant-based protein powder and found lead at 143% of their daily level of concern. That's already over the threshold in a single serving, from a product built entirely around the word organic, printed across the front of the label. Here's the part that matters more than the number itself. Orgain is owned by Nestlé Health Science, the same multinational corporation that owns Garden of Life, Vital Proteins, and Pure Encapsulations. One conglomerate controls what most shoppers still believe are competing, independently run brands, each with its own founder story and its own philosophy about clean nutrition. When Orgain responded to Consumer Reports, the company said its products are safe for daily use and that its heavy metal limits follow the latest guidance from federal and international health agencies. Here's the problem with that statement. Almost none of those agencies actually publish a specific safety limit for lead in protein powder. There's nothing concrete to follow because no regulatory body has bothered to write it down. Organic label. Nestlé ownership behind the scenes. 143% of the daily threshold. And the next brand on this list costs even more at checkout and tests even worse in the lab. Number 9. Quest Protein Shake. Quest built its entire identity on being the smart snack brand, the company that reverse-engineered indulgent, dessert-flavored products into something that fits neatly inside a macro tracker. Their protein shakes show up in gym bags, office fridges, and every What I Eat in a Day video posted online. Consumer Reports found lead in Quest's chocolate protein shake at 161% of the daily level of concern. That's over the limit in a single carton, the exact kind of product people drink on the way to the gym, believing they're making the disciplined, health-forward choice for the day. Quest's public response to the finding was that the levels detected are evidence their food safety programs are working effectively. Read that again slowly. A result sitting above the recommended limit was reframed publicly as proof the system is functioning correctly. That's not reassurance about safety. That's a company deciding which number gets emphasized in a press statement and which one gets quietly buried underneath it. 161%. A snack brand built on discipline and precision, and the next brand adds something Quest Shake doesn't have on its record, an actual legal settlement, twice over. Number 8. Vega Premium Sport Plant-Based Protein. Vega spent years building a reputation as the clean, plant-powered choice for serious athletes. The tub you'd find at a health food co-op long before it ever showed up on a regular grocery store shelf. Certified vegan, non-GMO, marketed directly at people who specifically avoid whey because they don't trust conventional dairy supply chains. Consumer Reports found lead in Vega's premium sport plant-based protein at 185% of the daily level of concern. They also found cadmium high enough that a single serving alone would put a consumer over the daily limit for that metal too, on top of the lead. Here's what separates Vega from almost everything else on this list. The company has already paid roughly $336,000 in penalties to settle California Proposition 65 allegations. First in 2013, then again in 2018, both times over claims that its products carried elevated levels of lead, cadmium, or other heavy metals without a required warning label on the packaging. Vega admitted no wrongdoing in either settlement. That's twice, 6 years apart, over the same underlying issue. After Consumer Reports published its most recent results, Vega quietly renamed the product and switched its pea protein sourcing from China to North America. The company says the sourcing change is relevant because heavy metal levels in plant protein often reflect the soil the crop was grown in. That's true. It's also, functionally, an admission that the soil the previous formula sourced from was part of the problem all along, and that admission only became public after the lab results forced the conversation. 2 Prop 65 settlements. A quiet product. Rename. A sourcing switch announced only after the numbers went public, not before. If you've made it this far, you're already about a third of the way through this list, and from here the brands only get more recognizable. Number 7. Jocko Fuel Malt Protein Shake. This one runs on a completely different kind of trust than a nutrition label. Jocko Willink built an entire brand around discipline, personal accountability, and doing things the hard way with no shortcuts. His audience buys malt because the name attached to it represents exactly that ethic, extended into what they put in their body. Consumer Reports found lead in the chocolate malt protein shake at 199% of their daily level of concern, just shy of double the threshold, sitting inside a single carton. Jocko Fuel was one of only 5 companies out of 23 tested that didn't respond at all to Consumer Reports' request for comment. No pushback on the methodology. No explanation of sourcing. No acknowledgement whatsoever. When almost every other company on this list managed at least one public statement, silence here reads less like an oversight from a small operation and more like a deliberate choice from a brand that usually has plenty to say. 199%, wrapped in disciplined branded packaging, and total silence once the number became public record. Number 6. Optimum Nutrition Serious Mass. Optimum Nutrition is arguably the single most recognized name in the entire sports nutrition industry. The brand that's occupied shelf space at every GNC, vitamin shop, and big box store for decades. Serious Mass is their calorie-dense weight gainer, built specifically for people trying to pack on muscle as fast as possible. Here the story isn't lead at all. It's arsenic. Consumer Reports found inorganic arsenic, a substance the EPA formally classifies as a known human carcinogen, at 202% of the daily level of concern in a single serving of Serious Mass. Out of every product in the entire investigation, this was the only one where a heavy metal other than lead posed the greater risk to the person drinking it. Optimum Nutrition declined to comment when Consumer Reports reached out for a response. Not, "We stand by our safety record." Not, "Here's our internal testing data." A flat decline from the single biggest and most trusted brand in the entire category regarding a known carcinogen sitting inside their best-selling weight gainer. 202%. Arsenic, not lead, and a company that chose silence over an explanation when it mattered most. Number 5. Muscle Meds Carnivore Mass. Every brand so far on this list has been plant-based, and there's a reason a lot of people assume switching to meat-derived protein sidesteps the entire problem. Carnivore Mass is built entirely around that assumption. A beef protein isolate marketed specifically to people who distrust pea and soy protein and want something they consider more natural, more traditional, closer to real food. Consumer Reports found lead in Carnivore Mass at 247% of the daily level of concern, the only non-plant-based product in their entire test to cross 200%. The one brand people chose specifically to avoid this exact problem posted the worst number among every single dairy, beef, and whey product tested in the whole investigation. Muscle-Maids told Consumer Reports it tests its products against a limit of 10 micrograms per serving, which is the NSF's industry testing threshold, not a figure tied to any genuine daily safety margin for ongoing consumption. Meeting an industry benchmark and meeting an actual safety standard are two very different claims, and the marketing on the tub never draws that distinction for the customer. 247%. From the one brand built entirely on the premise that walking away from plant protein solves the problem. We're now halfway through this list, and every brand from this point forward is one you've either used yourself or seen recommended by someone you genuinely trust. Number 4. Momentous 100% plant protein. Momentous positions itself as the premium, athlete-vetted option. The brand professional sports teams and Olympic-level performance coaches openly put their name behind. It isn't cheap, and the price tag is part of the pitch. You're paying extra specifically for rigor, for third-party testing, for a level of scrutiny the mass-market brands supposedly skip. Consumer Reports found lead in Momentous's 100% plant protein at 476% of the daily level of concern, nearly 5 times the threshold in a single scoop of a product marketed as the gold standard of the category. Momentous told Consumer Reports the specific product tested has since been discontinued, following what the company described as a massive overhaul of its formulas and sourcing practices. That may well be true, but the units already sold are still sitting in pantries and gym bags right now, today, and there is no published independent retest confirming exactly what changed or by how much the numbers actually improved. A company can quietly retire a formula behind the scenes without ever directly telling the customers who already bought it what was wrong with the version in their cabinet. 476%, premium pricing, athlete endorsements, and a fix you're only hearing about now because the original lab results were made public. Number 3. Garden of Life Sport Organic Plant-Based Protein. This is the brand health-conscious shoppers reach for with complete, unquestioning confidence. USDA Organic Certified, NSF Certified for sport, the exact certification professional athletes rely on to avoid banned substances and doping tests. Garden of Life spent 2 full decades building a reputation as the clean, whole food alternative to industrial corporate supplements. Consumer Reports found lead in Garden of Life Sport Organic Plant-Based Protein at 61 parts per billion, 564% of the daily level of concern, 5.5 times over the threshold. In the product carrying 2 of the most trusted certifications in the entire industry. Garden of Life is owned by Nestlé Health Science, acquired in a $2.3 billion deal back in 2017. The same parent company that owns Organ, the brand sitting all the way back at number 10 on this list. 2 products marketed to entirely different customers as competing organic alternatives, manufactured under the exact same corporate roof with the exact same regulatory gaps to hide behind. Garden of Life told Consumer Reports its products are safe for daily use and that its internal limits follow guidance from federal and global health agencies. Here's the problem with that statement, stated plainly. None of those agencies have actually published a specific enforceable safety limit for lead and protein powder. There is no guidance to follow, because no one in a position of regulatory authority has ever written it down. The company is citing a rulebook that, in any meaningful sense, doesn't exist. Organic Seal, Sport Certification. Nestlé ownership underneath both, 564% of the daily threshold. If a certification this specific, this respected, and this expensive can sit directly on top of a number this high, the next 2 brands on this list should make you stop scrolling and go check your own kitchen cabinet right now. Number 2. Huel Black Edition. Huel isn't just a protein powder, it's built and marketed as an entire lifestyle. People construct their whole daily routine around it, some documenting online how they lived on nothing but Huel for weeks or even months at a stretch, treating it not as an occasional supplement but as a complete, engineered replacement for real meals. Consumer Reports found lead in Huel's Black Edition chocolate powder at 1288% of the daily level of concern. One single serving contains 3 micrograms of lead, meaning 1 scoop already pushes a person past the FDA's own interim reference level for an entire day's worth of dietary lead exposure before they've eaten a single bite of anything else. It gets worse from there. The same serving also contained 2 micrograms of cadmium, more than double the daily amount public health experts consider potentially harmful to consume. Huel's spokesperson told Consumer Reports the company is confident in its current formulation and that it falls well within levels set by the NSF. When asked specifically, directly, about the cadmium finding, Huel did not respond at all. This is a brand people are actively using to replace multiple meals a day, every day, at levels their own company spokesperson wouldn't address on the record when asked a direct question. 1,288%. A meal replacement brand built for daily repeated use. Total silence on the second heavy metal found sitting right alongside the first. And that brings us to number 1. The brand that recorded the single highest lead level in this entire investigation, inside a product whose own name promises the exact opposite of what the lab actually found. Number 1. Naked Nutrition. Vegan Mass Gainer. The name is the entire pitch, wrapped up in one word. Naked. Nothing hidden, nothing added. Stripped all the way down to just what your body actually needs. It's marketed directly at people who specifically distrust the big, established supplement brands and want something that sounds simple, minimal, and honest by design. Consumer Reports found lead in Naked Nutrition's Vegan Mass Gainer at 1,572% of the daily level of concern, the highest single reading in their entire test, and according to CR's own comparison, nearly twice as much lead per serving as the worst product they found the last time they ran this exact investigation 15 years earlier. One serving contains 7 micrograms of lead, combined with the average American adult's existing daily dietary lead exposure from ordinary food and water. A single scoop of this one product can push a person past the FDA's own interim safety benchmark before they've eaten a single other meal that day. Naked Nutrition told Consumer Reports it sources its ingredients from select suppliers who provide documentation confirming they've been checked for heavy metals, and that the company takes its customers' health very seriously. They also confirmed in that same statement that they are still in the process of obtaining NSF certification, meaning the product currently sitting on store shelves right now hasn't cleared even the industry's own baseline testing standard yet. You did the responsible thing here. You picked the brand whose entire name, whose entire marketing philosophy promised transparency and simplicity above everything else. And the laboratory found the highest lead level in the whole investigation, sitting inside that exact product. If a brand literally called Naked can post the worst number on this entire list, what does that tell you about every other tub sitting in your cabinet right now, with a name you trust even more than that one? Now that you know what to avoid, here are the 4 that actually held up under testing. These aren't consolation picks handed out to soften the blow. They're the specific products that tested at levels Consumer Reports considers genuinely acceptable for regular ongoing use, and in one case, the brand that publishes its own third-party lab results voluntarily, without a single customer ever having to ask for them. Best option number 4. OYN Pro Elite High Protein Shake. OYN stands for Only What You Need, and for once on this list, the name on the label actually matches the number that came back from the lab. Consumer Reports found lead at 88% of the daily level of concern, low enough to be rated safe for 1 full serving per day with no additional restriction attached. It was the only plant-based product in their entire investigation to earn that rating. If you need a vegan or dairy-free option and don't want to gamble blindly on anything else covered in this list, this is the specific product Consumer Reports itself points readers toward. Best option number 3. Transparent Labs. Mass Gainer. Transparent Labs tested at 87% of the daily level of concern, also cleared for daily use without restriction. What actually sets this brand apart from almost everyone else, though, isn't just the number itself. Transparent Labs is one of only 2 companies in the entire Consumer Reports investigation that publishes its own third-party heavy metal test results directly on its website, openly, without a customer ever having to request them privately. That single practice is exactly the standard every brand on the avoid list above should be held to, and almost none of them actually are. Best option number 2. Optimum Nutrition Gold Standard 100% Whey. This is the real irony sitting at the center of this entire investigation. The same parent brand that posted an alarming carcinogen-level arsenic result in its weight gainer also happens to make the single most popular whey protein powder in all of America, and that specific product tested completely differently. Consumer Reports found lead at just 56% of the daily level of concern in gold standard whey, safe for close to 2 full servings a day. Same company, same laboratory, the same round of testing, and a completely different outcome depending entirely on which product from their lineup you actually picked up. That tells you something important. The problem was never Optimum Nutrition as a brand name on its own. It's specific ingredient sourcing decisions inside specific individual products. And that's exactly why checking the actual product in your hand matters far more than trusting whatever logo happens to be printed across the front of it. Best option number 1. Muscle Tech 100% Mass Gainer. Of every single product Consumer Reports tested in this entire investigation, chocolate, vanilla, plant-based, dairy-based, whey, beef, budget, or premium, this is the only one where lead wasn't detected at all. Not a low number, not a manageable number. No limit on daily servings whatsoever because there was nothing measurable to limit in the first place. And this came from a plain mass-market mass gainer that isn't the most expensive product in this category, isn't the most heavily influencer marketed, and doesn't carry a single organic or premium athlete certification anywhere on the label. The brand with the loudest health claims plastered across its packaging finished at the very bottom of this entire list. The plain mass gainer nobody's paid influencer is actively promoting finished at the very top. Before you close this out, here's the pattern underneath everything you just heard, and it's worth remembering the next time you're standing in the supplement aisle. Plant-based protein powders tested, on average, 9 times higher in lead than dairy-based products and twice as high as beef-based options, according to Consumer Reports' own published findings. That doesn't mean plant protein is inherently dangerous by nature. It means the extraction process plant proteins go through, especially pea protein, specifically creates more opportunities for contamination at every single stage, from the initial dehulling all the way through to the final spray drying that turns it into the powder in your shaker. It also means organic certification and NSF Certified for sport labeling verify a process. They do not verify a result. None of the worst brands on this entire list were unregulated, fringe, back-alley products nobody's heard of. Several of them carried exactly the certifications people are specifically trained to trust the most. Look for brands that publish their own third-party heavy metal results voluntarily without you ever having to ask for them. That one habit alone tells you more about a company's actual standards than any seal or stamp printed on the front of the tub. If a company can't show you the number when asked directly, assume there's a specific reason they'd rather you didn't see it. And remember what almost nobody selling these products will ever tell you outright. Protein powder isn't required for a healthy diet in the first place. Federal Nutrition Survey data shows most American adults already exceed their recommended daily protein intake through ordinary food alone, without a single scoop of powder involved. Every gram of unnecessary lead or cadmium exposure that comes from a shaker bottle is exposure you were never actually required to take on to begin with. If this changed how you look at your own supplement shelf, passing it along to someone who uses one of these brands every single day is probably the single most useful thing you can do with everything you just learned.